For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. You know, don't those medication commercials make diseases look so fun? Yeah, I want diabetes. I want high blood pressure. I want menopause. Like, really? I mean, I feel like I'm not living. I haven't lived. I want to just go out into the streets where there's a spontaneous, fully choreographed flash mob that just happens because we have diabetes. I mean, that's it. Just I live a sheltered life, everybody. There's my confession for you on this show. But we're going to talk about medications because is the world gone too reliant on drugs? Prescription drugs, I'm saying. Well, I guess maybe other kinds as well. That's what we're talking about on The Scribble, starting right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here on this Scribble. For all this talk about cord cutting, right? People getting rid of their television subscriptions. They're not watching the actual networks or anything anymore. You'd think that the traditional commercial, right? The 30-second commercial, the 60-second commercial, you'd think that would be on the way out. Instead, it seems like there's more of those now than ever. Now, I don't know about you. Like, we at our house, we still have regular cable because I'm in the entertainment business and I need to have actual television. I can't just rely on apps. Actually, I don't even have any. So, like the streaming apps or whatever, I don't have apps on any of them, or apps for any of them on my phone. Everything's through my TV at home. We have regular cable, which has access to Netflix and all those other ones, but I do not have any television apps on my phone. You might go and say, wait a second, that's a contradiction. You're an entertainment reporter and host, but you don't have anything on your phone. Well, no, because if there's something that I need to watch, I do have a way of dialing into my home television on my phone. Dialing in, is that the new? There's my up-to-date technology lingo. But no, what I'm saying is there's no Netflix app, Disney app, HBO app. None of those are on my phone at all, because it's all done just centrally through the television. But anyway, so back to the medication thing. So you'd think that if people aren't, watching networks or whatever, but now I guess you do have YouTube ads and different, online platforms. But the reason why I'm linking this to television was I was watching CNN. Do you remember CNN back in the day? That used to be my favorite network, everybody. It used to be until it went all political. But So there was breaking news, and I was watching it, and they go commercial free for however long. I've been in the news business a long time. It happens. You just expect it. So then, when they do finally catch up on the commercials, so let's say the breaking news is happening between noon and 6 p.m. So, it's a big story. There's a long stretch, 6 hours commercial free. Well, if you think about that, depending on the network, you have at least 20 minutes of commercials every hour, right? So now you've scrapped all of those for 6 hours. You now need to, they don't just go away, right? I mean, advertisers have paid for them. So you have to do make goods, or you just reschedule them. And that means that the commercials now get bumped or pushed somewhere else. So you've probably noticed this if you've watched a live event like that, where suddenly the next 4 hours, so for now 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock, is just commercials, right? You're just hit with all of them because they've got to make up for them. So anyway, my point is that this one day that I was watching CNN, the one commercial break, I didn't time it, but let's say it was 3 to 4 minutes, because those medication commercials are not just 30 seconds. They've got to tell that story. They've got to get all the dance moves in. The one commercial break, aside from one commercial for a picture frame company, which again was also just a really long commercial, it was all medication commercials during that one break. So you have the one where they're going on a roller coaster. I don't know the names of them. So there's the one where they're going on a roller coaster. Then there's another one where they're on a boat or on the beach or something. And then I haven't seen that one in a long time. I can't remember the name of the commercial, but it was the woman who was outside. It looked like she was on Sesame Street. The buildings were all just very cartoon-like, and then there was a fountain, and and then at the end, everybody's in the streets dancing. It was called Jardiance. Thank you, Tim. Jardiance. The song will come to me eventually, but you know the one I'm talking about. So then she goes and she's laughing with the mailman, and then there's a postman, a mail carrier. And again, it's just this like choreographed dance. I think it was a diabetes medication. I don't know. Full disclosure, by the way, just to give you the entire story here, I don't have any prescriptions. I'm not on medications. I haven't. Thankfully, my husband and I live very healthy lives. We actually, it's funny. Just a few months ago, actually, on this show, I think I did the sick show. It was the first time I had been sick in 8 years. We didn't have anything in terms of, fever, medication, cold and flu. We don't have anything like that in our house. Seriously. I hadn't been sick. He hasn't been sick. So we had to go specifically. Actually, we ordered it delivered, but we had absolutely nothing. So in terms of prescriptions, I don't have, high blood pressure. I don't have anything like that. I also just learned, this is how sheltered I am, but we've got a large gay audience as well. I'd never heard of this like HIV pill, prevention pill, or whatever you want to call it. I had no idea about this, but apparently it's very well known, and it's now almost sort of your identification of, oh, I'm on the such and such medication. And for me, that's very bizarre, because I don't know, you just go around disclosing that you're, I see all the time on social media people commenting or putting out there about like ADHD or sober for however many, well, I think sober is, I guess, a different thing, but like people in their like Instagram bio will go and put, ADHD. And I'm sitting thinking, this is just very bizarre that you disclose your conditions. I mean, it's fine to be proud of it and upfront or whatever, but I don't get it. I don't understand. It's a little bit strange to me that you just go and I've seen it too, where the bio will say like diabetic. Is that a little too much to share? I mean, maybe that's I'm trailing off, but I mean, all right. So back to the medication thing. It was strange that, yes, this one commercial break, save for that picture framing company, was all medications. And so there was an interview that I saw with, now, was it Dr. Phil or Dr. Oz? One of the TV quack doctors, who, by the way, were both on our radio shows back in the day, and both were very wonderful guests. I've got to tell you, as much as they've kind of now gone, a little bit kooky in some instances. We had both Dr. Phil was on a few times. We had him on when my dog died. This is about 7 or 8 years ago. We had him on for when my dog died. We had him. We had Cesar Milan, the dog whisperer, and we had the mayor from my hometown because the dog came from the city pound. He came from the animal services department. So we had these quote unquote doctors on. Dr. Oz is an actual doctor, but his TV persona was a little bit, kooky. But anyway, so they were both wonderful guests. Even, when we're on, quote unquote on, when we're recording, obviously they're the character, but they were very, very nice. I mean, Dr. Phil thanked me, said, this is great questions, great conversation, hit me up anytime, glad to chat again. At the time, he was producing a show about animals. I think it was rescue animals or something they were doing. So he had kind of a crossover with what we were talking about anyway. But anyway, so one of them, they're telling me now it was Dr. Phil that was saying it, that society is so very quick to now prescribe drugs to kids because I'm anxious, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that, I'm that, I'm that, I'm that. Great, put them on pills. And so that goes back to the ADHD thing that I was just mentioning, was that it's not necessarily diagnosed properly. It's just perhaps the kid is saying, oh, this is what's happening to me. I mean, I will tell you that when I was in my early, I was working at, I was about 21, 22, when I diagnosed myself with having anxiety and depression. Now, you were going back over 20 years, so it was a little bit different. There wasn't social media basically telling you have these things. And it wasn't the cool thing to have ADHD so that your friends are all talking about it and you're like, I think I have it now. But I determined that I had anxiety and depression. And so you go to the doctor and you basically tell him what, is going on. He asks you questions. And because you've already convinced yourself, right? Like you're already certain that you have it, you're going to answer the questions to make your situation sound just as bad, right? I mean, if he's asking you, well, are you doing this? Oh, yeah, right? It's sort of like when you just believe something and you convince yourself of it. Not a hypochondriac. I'm just, I'm like, okay, I've got a cough. Well, I'm going to go online and just say, maybe it's COVID. Oh my God, I got COVID, right? Like so the doctor was asking me all these questions and I just said, well, yes, I mean, I'm trembling, I'm nervous, I'm scared, I can't sleep, I'm panicking, I can't eat. And I mean, a lot of those things were true, but then I wanted that prescription because I just wanted the pills. I just needed the pills. I needed it to, fix me, basically. So I had prescriptions for anxiety and depression for probably 2 or 3 years. And in my, early 20s, it messed with my body. It totally destroyed my sex drive. And when you're, in your early 20s, you should be, when you're a 20-year-old man, I mean, that's the peak of your time. So it was, I guess the term would be a boner killer. The meds were a boner killer. I had no interest. And then also too, I would, you would, without getting too graphic, you would try by yourself. And you just, you could. At one point, at the beginning, I weighed 130 pounds. I've never been a big person. I ballooned up to 170 at the height of this. So taking the meds, I put on 170. Now the thing is that, like I said, back then, you weren't so open and free about, I'm on these meds. Oh, I'm on anxiety, depression meds. Yeah, no, I'm medicated. Yeah, you just didn't do that because it was not a stigma it was more sort of embarrassment because that's you saying that your life isn't under control, right? I mean, so it was a little bit different. Now, I don't know why people brag about having ADHD and post it as though it's their persona or their character. So people did not know I was on medication. So then it's kind of like, well, your face is getting fat. Oh, and I noticed it obviously because pants aren't fitting or anything like that. So there was a part of me that just at some point said to myself, because I know people asked me eventually once I got off the meds, oh, well, how was it quote unquote cured, right? How? And I said, I think I just gradually stopped taking it. But for me, it was more so a change of thought. It was me saying, I don't like not having a sex drive and being able to orgasm or getting fat and having no appetite. Meanwhile, because again, when you get big, everybody thinks that assumes that it's eating, right? That you're or lazy or whatever it is, and that was not the case for me. It was just a side effect of the meds. So I just remember thinking and saying to myself, why am I letting these things get to me? Why am I paranoid? Why am I, a quack? I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be going through this every day. I just don't want this to happen. And so I think it was my brain. It was my way of looking at things. It was the way I went about my day. It was the way I handled things. It was the way I processed things when they happened to me. Now, again, let me be clear. I'm certainly no medical expert. I'm not telling you that you don't need meds. I'm not anti-medication. I'm not anti-prescription. I'm just saying for me, that's essentially what happened. I just kind of stopped taking the meds. And then I also I didn't go back to the doctor to get a refill. But I mean, there was just something powerful in, I've got a prescription, and you get in your head, even probably just with that alone. Right now, it's official because you have a prescription now. So for me, and I don't know that I've ever had, truthfully, I haven't had a prescription. Oh, it's not so true. Well, I had my wisdom teeth out. Okay, that was, again, 15 years ago. Fine, you get a prescription for that. Okay. But in terms of like any kind of a condition or, disease or anything, I haven't had anything. So it's just weird, though, that they glamorize the pills or medications in these commercials. So it's almost, I get what they're doing, right? They want to make it look like diabetes isn't a problem. It's not a setback. It's not crippling. It's not. And on our medication, you can just go and dance in the streets with random people and so it is kind of weird messaging. And again, I always sort of look at that and go, who's your audience here on this? Because, I'm in my 40s and I'm watching just a bunch of randos celebrating their disease or they're battling their disease with this medication. And I mean, does a 40-year-old really kind of go, wow, that could be my life. That could be, it almost seems like it's geared towards kids. And maybe that is the case. Maybe it is looking at teenagers or in their 20s or whatever it is for these medications, but it is just very strange to me. So the fact that there are so many drug commercials on at one time, and they always have the stupidest names. Have you noticed that? Like it's just like a random collection of vowels or consonants, or just not even a, it's like Gogavi, Mogavi, Jarjans, Hargabins, right? Or what was the one? If it's COVID, Plaxlovid, like, really? Give him a cool name, like give him something. Anyway, but yeah, is that society's dependence on medication? Is everything just, quick throw a pill? Back to the, words of Dr. Phil, who basically was saying that, we're just, I think it was actually related to school shootings. It might have been. And so the diagnosis of all, a lot of these shooters is it's ADHD, it's this, it's ADD, it's, blah, 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 it's blah, blah, blah. And again, how much assessment have these people undergone? Like I said, I know just for me to get a prescription, it was just a matter of like asking or answering the doctor's questions. Could I have lied? I think maybe I exaggerated would be the word, not necessarily lied, but definitely, you want it to work out in your favor. You go in there expecting he's going to tell me I have depression and anxiety. And that's also, he knows that that's what you want to hear. Maybe you want to be told you don't have it, but why would you be there then if you aren't already convinced of it? That's kind of it, right? And so, yeah, I went into those appointments, or the first appointment going, I'm getting a prescription, but before I leave here, like I'm leaving with pills, or I'm leaving, with something. And he did. He ended up giving me like a trial thing of pills. I don't know if it was like a week or 2 weeks, which obviously isn't long enough, as I found out. But it was something to just kind of see if there's a gradual change or if anything happens. There were bad changes, the weight and all the other stuff. But it went on for a couple of years. And then eventually, yeah, like I said, I just told myself, I need to get out of this. I need to change my train of thought, my mood, my attitude. And that's what it was. And I've never looked back, and I've never had, I've never had, suicidal thoughts. I've never being depressed in the sense of my life is worthless, it's not going anywhere. And even when I was single, because you would think that, when you're, I was living in my parents' house in their basement and I was single, I was on my own, I was working a retail job, which isn't the dream at that point in your life. And, fast forward just a few years, all of a sudden I'm in writing, which was, I always wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a newspaper reporter. I had opportunities now where I was writing a regular newspaper column and I was starting out in broadcasting. So things were really turning around. So again, I think a lot of it is the distraction that you have. We didn't have social media that was making us depressed. There was no term doom scrolling back then. I still don't even do that now. I'm very rarely on social media. And I'm certainly not, if I open up Instagram, it's to I look at the first post that comes up just because that's the default when you open the app. But then I don't sit there and scroll. I don't think that I've ever scrolled more than like 5 posts on Instagram or on Facebook or on a news app, because those are your top stories right at the top, right? At the top of the website for CNN or whatever it is. But I've never had an interest in that. And so that's where, again, it's what you put in front of yourself. It's what you subject yourself to. So for me, it was a matter of removing myself from those painful thoughts and being able to do that. And again, when you're in the height of it, you don't think that you can, right? There was nothing I can do. I just can't stop thinking about it. Well, you can if you just focus your attention elsewhere. And so that's what I did, was I started focusing on my career, the long-term plan. And now here I am. Again, I retired at 39. We still host this show because it's fun to do. But, I retired over 4 years ago because I made a shit ton of money with a highly syndicated radio show that was very popular. Lots of money came in from that. And, and I've got a hot husband who's a Brazilian fitness model. So, winning. But I still would love to just go and dance with random strangers in the street. I would absolutely do that. Give me a call. Let's make it happen. Going to totally shift gears to another subject. But speaking of aging, I want to know from our older listeners, when it comes to careers and job changes, do you feel like you're kind of being pushed out of the workforce? I'll tell you what I mean on the Scribble right after this.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
JB here on the Scribble. I have a radio colleague who he's been in the business for, at least 10, not as long as me. I've been in for 20 years. I met him at an event. So I would say he's been in the radio business for about 10 years. And he was laid off. The big companies are doing that a lot now. Even though they're making record profits, they've got more money coming in than they ever have. For some reason, they're laying off all of their lower level staff while the executives get big fat bonuses and raises. You've heard this story before. And so he was saying to me, well, first of all, he was asking me if I have any, connections or any insights. And I said, I still do radio, but I'm not as, I don't want to use the term a power player because that's sort of cocky, but I'm not as tuned in to that industry and that scene anymore, just because when I was hosting our radio show, which again ended for almost 5 years ago now, I kind of not cut ties. I just don't have a need to stay in touch or communicate with those people. And I was involved in getting our shows on stations and networks and platforms and things like that. So I knew a lot of people. And so when he lost his job, which you have to realize that too in media, in news and in broadcasting, whatever, you can work at a radio station and you can come in and they will absolutely flip the format. So you could go from a country station to all of a sudden a rock and roll station, and you're laid off. The entire on-air crew is gone. That's just what happens. You're paid out, if you've been there long enough or whatever it is, but it's still, they can just, behind the scenes, they'll be working on a format change for months. A lot of people will know about it. Who's always the last to find out? On-air staff. Even though you could still, you're a country host, but it's like, well, I can adapt to rock and roll, whatever. It's not a big deal, whatever. Nope. The format change means everything is new. Not bringing the people over, it's a brand new state. Everything is new. And so that's the situation that he had. Now, I've got to tell you, see, my career in radio was I was the boss. I produced our show. I called the shots, and then we blasted out to stations. We syndicated. So it's kind of like we produced the show. Whether if you want it, you want it. If you don't, if you don't like it, then don't take it. But we never had that issue of, I never lost a job in radio because I didn't work for a station. We produced the content. We certainly lost stations, fine. But I mean, we had 20 other ones or 30 other stations. So it wasn't a big... So I've never worked for a traditional radio... Like, I've never had an actual, 9-to-5 radio job. My entire career was me producing this thing. And then eventually another, we had a top 40 show, and then we had a country show, and then our entertainment headline show. And those were our products. So I've never had to answer to a program director. I've never been in that situation like my friend is. So he loses his job. He's looking. There's a bunch of different radio jobs. But again, in your city, it's very tough to, there might be one opening. Back in the day, the competition was tough, especially if there was a newspaper job that opened in the city. I mean, you had everybody applying. Now, because those industries are sort of dying, they don't get as many applicants or as many quality applicants. So here he is, 10 years in the industry, and he's got obviously lots of demos and a good resume, lots under his belt that he can show that he knows what he's doing. He can host, no problem. But of course, the stations are wanting somebody entry level. So it's interesting because what he said is the job ads for radio say that, you've got to have the chops, right? You got to have the experience. You've got to have this. You got to have this many years or this, or you've got to have, program experience or know how to use all these programs, a full list of programs. And he's like, I do. I check every box. I check every box. And either one of two things, either he doesn't hear from them or he does have an interview or whatever, and he leaves there feeling, because I'm overqualified, I'm going to cost them more, right? Because the salary, I'm going to command a higher salary because of my experience and, what I know and what I've done. So there was one that he went to. It was a country station. It was in his hometown. And he was watching because he had the interview. And by the way, they had this position open for several months. So in that 4-hour block of what the person had left the station, like the person had quit, the on-air personality had quit, they didn't fill that position for months. So when he saw the job posted a few times, he applied the second or third time that it was posted. So for him, that's saying, okay, they just either haven't found somebody or nobody wants the job. So that should be easier to get the job. Right? I mean, I would think, again, I'm not in HR, I don't know, but I would think the first time I post the job, that's when I'm going to get the most applicants. Because the job seekers are then going to notice, wait a second, the cutoff date was April 2nd, and now on April 9th, you're reposting it. That is sketchy. So you could look at it one of two ways. So for me, if I saw that, I would have applied the first time, and then I would have been cheeky, and I would have been kind of a dick and say, oh, I noticed the repost. I'll just obviously you didn't find the right person. Obviously you didn't get the right candidate. So here I am. Again, take note of me. I'm interested. Hit me up. So the job that he had saw was 3 times posted, and the position remained vacant, or the on-air shift remained vacant for months. So he kept going to the station's website, and he wanted to see when the person would start. Because weeks earlier, he got an email that said, one of those thanks but no thanks, thanks for your interest, blah, 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 right? That kind of a rejection. So that's where he's like, okay, every other day I'm going to go to the website and see who they hired. And I want to see, is it somebody with experience? Is it somebody with, because, the bio, you'll always be able to tell if the person's been in the business for a while, right? Like mine would say something like, he's covered red carpets. He was at Betty White's 90th birthday. He's done this and that. That's going to say, hey, Jeremy's been in radio for a really long time. You're going to be able to figure that out. As opposed to somebody who's went to such and such college and loves plants and has a dog named so-and-so. That to me screams first radio job, right? So he wanted to see what it would be. Weeks go by. So after he gets the rejection letter, weeks go by, there's still nothing. So now he's getting pissed off going, they're just saying no to me, and they still don't even have anybody. So they don't even want to take a chance on me. They don't even want to bring me in. And he said there was nothing wrong, in the interview. He had a great demo. He did have a couple celebrity interviews and, a few different things that he had put forward. And so I'm sitting there going, well, for in the little city that he lives in, I mean, that is pretty good for him to have those accomplishments or those, demos that he can put forward. So weeks go by. Now he sees the program schedule has changed and there is somebody listed on that shift. And it was exactly what I just described to you. She's fresh out of college. She's a hometown girl who went to such and such college. You'll catch her at the farmer's market on weekends. But no, tell me about her fucking radio experience. If she's going to be hosting this music show, tell me which artists she loves. Tell me which ones she's interviewed. Tell me which red carpets she's covered. Tell me that she's been at how many Grammys. Tell me, why she's real. But that she likes puppies. She likes eating cotton candy. She likes going and playing darts. I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, never worked in radio. Never fucking worked in radio. So, not that my friend is old. He's not. He's in his 30s. But for broadcasting, I mean, you just kind of look at that and go, wow, so they wanted somebody with absolutely no experience because they could get them cheaper. That's what it is. So back to, I said earlier, I'm talking to now people, in your 30s or 40s, 50s, 60s. Do you find that having too much work experience works against you? Like, do you almost want to sort of downplay your resume? Does it make you want to do that? We hear about ageism all the time, right? But because back in the day, your resume, you would sort of pad it. You would embellish would be the word. Exaggerate, perhaps. Lie is maybe too strong of a word. But, right, you would maybe just sort of glam it up a little bit. You would sort of just, a little bit of a touch here and there and just hope it went unnoticed. But now my friend is saying, I almost want to take away a bunch of my experience. I almost want to not show off everything because it makes me look too seasoned and too expensive to hire. So what do you think about that? Send me an email, live, Live, at jbonair.com. live@jbonair.com. Again, for me, yeah, my resume would be blasted. I would have fucking slideshows. I would put together a 30-minute reel of these are my best and worst moments on a red carpet. This is how I handled that bad moment. This is how I... this is me laughing with Dolly Parton. This is her surprising me on my radio show. This is me at Betty White's birthday. This is me laughing, on the red carpet at the Emmys with whoever. Here's Allison Janney, prank calling our show. Here's Jeff Probst and Julie Chen voting me off of my show. I would put all that forward. I mean, to me, that would be a piss off because I'm sitting here going, I'm sorry, wait a second. You chose somebody who's a college graduate who likes plants over the guy who's done all this shit. So to me, that just says something about the industry. That just says yeah, okay, that's pretty... Now, I realize that it could come across as me being cocky or having, an attitude or something like that. Sure, I get it. But I'm just saying in terms of my friend who's not like that, he's definitely not like me, who was very genuine, right? For me, when we had radio stations drop our shows, it was no big deal. It didn't affect our, ad sales. It didn't affect our programming. It didn't affect our production in any way, really, because stations were coming to us after a while asking to run our programming. But certainly if that's your only job and that's your income, I mean, yeah, you're going to be as pleasant and polite as possible. You're not going to have any ego about yourself because you want that job. It goes back to what I was talking about on the show a few weeks ago, where it's like employees or potential employees, the candidates have the upper hand. It's now the employer that's doing the song and dance to try and woo and sway you to impress you. Back in the day, it was me, the candidate, the applicant, who was, trying to make a good impression and make you like me. And then I would go home in a panic that, oh my God, I said the wrong thing. And I hope they like. And now it's almost this ego of, yeah, they're going to call me. Yeah, I'm going to make them pay up. I'm going to make them give me more benefits and more time off and whatever. I mean, it's just a very weird situation. So the email address is live, Live, at jbonair.com. live@jbonair.com. I said years ago, our group, I've told you many times in recent weeks, our group has been together for 20 years. We've all worked together. Most of us worked together at a publishing company before we came to my company to do this. And was it last week or 2 weeks ago that I said on the show, I wouldn't hire somebody in their 20s. I just wouldn't, because also too, we need that experience. So somebody who's just out of college, no, we need somebody with deep contacts. We need somebody who's produced, especially when we were doing our syndicated radio show, we needed somebody that's dealt with stations, that's dealt with ad buyers, that's dealt with all that kind of stuff. So just somebody out of college? No, because there's a level of experience that you need. You need to know how to talk. You need to know the lingo. You need to know how to get that ad. You need to know how to, do whatever it was that we were doing. And also just the attitude, the work ethic. I would not be able to work with somebody in their 20s. So for me, it's almost reverse ageism, where it's like if you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, yeah, well, and you've worked in the industry for 10, 15 years, yeah, we'll hire you. We'll consider you. Absolutely. But fresh out of college, like a student intern, we tried that actually 15, 16 years ago. We had a summer student because we basically got money from the government to bring this person in. I mean, it was fine because the salary mostly was subsidized by this program, but never again. I just wouldn't. I mean, he was a nice guy, but I mean, within the first hour, he was sitting there, texting his girlfriend, and I just said, like, yeah, buddy, no, we don't do that. That's not happening here. We don't, no. This is my company. I don't even sit there texting my husband or whatever. I just, let alone, you just got here. You just, But yeah, I mean, somebody in their 40s, 50s, 60s would absolutely have a shot working with us. That's what I would look forward to. If I look at a resume and I see that you've just graduated or that you've maybe worked at one radio station as a promotions person, no, not good enough for us. We're the opposite. We're not going for something cheap like that. It's just not. Yeah. So, live at jbonair.com. We are out of time, and I've got to wrap up the show right now. I don't even get to throw to one more break. There you go. There's my radio experience. I totally fucked up the schedule of the show. I tend to not care. See, when we were actually doing a live 2-hour show, we did have restrictions and time limitations and things like that. And so I've noticed over the past, maybe the last 3 months or so doing this podcast, we always said that it was going to be the 30-minute mark. That was kind of the cutoff. It was a nice round time. We're done at 30 minutes. It's, if you're doing 30 minutes on the treadmill, if you got 30 minutes for lunch, or you're doing a 30-minute dog walk or something, you have that expectation of, okay, the Scribble's 30 minutes. I can get through one full show, and it's a good time. And now we're running 34 minutes, 37 minutes, 41, 49, an hour and 7. Just because I thought, fuck it. If I still have stuff to say and we're laughing and having a good time, well, I'll continue on. So they do nudge me when we have less than 5 minutes left, and I mostly ignore them now. And that's the case today. And that's my years in radio, folks. I should just start applying for radio jobs. I wonder that would be interesting. I would have just different cities. I'll just make a fake address, right? I'll make it look like I live in their city, and then I'll just go and apply in Seattle, in Denver, in Detroit, in Miami, in whatever, Vancouver, Toronto, all just some of my fellow Canadian cities, and just see. And I'll change it up too. Maybe I'll have 20 years of experience on one resume, and then maybe I'll have 2 years of experience. Maybe I'll have worked for Ryan Seacrest in one of them. Maybe I'll have worked for, CBS in one of them, and then just see kind of where that goes. That's an interesting experiment. Sounds like a lot of work, and I'm retired, so now that I'm talking it through, I have no interest. But maybe I'll dispatch an employee to do it. Yeah. So, no fooling this time. I am going to wrap up the show. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. It's always awesome hearing from you. Send me an email, live at jbonair.com. I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye for now.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up The Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com. Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some